Well, we can see we've got our little boy, the little prince, still feeding off the last bone, the last leg of his carcass before he's going to have to move off. So he's got himself in a pretty compromised position on this fallen over tree. Doesn't look comfortable at all. There's no sign of any hyenas around, so I think he's just finishing off the last leg, and then that's going to be the end of it. And then he's probably going to start moving on and heading off and out of this area. There's no sign of any more meat up in the tree. I've checked around, so this is the last bit of his meal. But doesn't he look beautiful in this morning light on this fallen over stump? You can see there he is in his habitat, and it'd be quite difficult to actually see him if you didn't know he was here. He blends in really well, but luckily, we came across him. We know exactly where to look, and he was at least a little bit out and about. But his belly has definitely shrunk quite a bit. He's not nearly as full and as fat as what we saw yesterday. And like I said, once that bone is finished, I would be very surprised if he actually sleeps here. I think he might head off towards Treehouse Dam. And once he's done at Treehouse Dam having a drink, I think from there he's going to find himself some shade and probably rest for the day. But Hosana, there's really not much left there, my boy. I suppose you've got to make use of every little bit. When you're a young growing boy, you can't allow any bits of nutrients to go to waste. Linda, you say happy Catterday, Hosana. Well, yes, I forgot that it's Catterday today. So I suppose we're getting off to a rollicking start with all the spotted cats. It's been an incredible week that we've had. Well, not week, I suppose. The last 24 hours have been insane. So it's good to have spots in the Mara and spots in Djuma. It seems to be a common theme these days, is the cheetah that side and the leopard this side, which we won't complain about at all. It's really nice to be spending so much time with all of our spotted cats. But what is quite cool now is the way Hosana is standing, and you can see the size of those front paws. Even though he's still a young male, he's got massive paws already. Look at that. See how big those toes are? Massive toes. Really is impressive to see that at this age he's already got those big feet, and he'll grow into them a little bit more. His feet aren't as big as Tumba's. I've checked the tracks from when the two of them were close together, and Tumba's definitely got bigger feet, but it still are not small, and they will still get bigger as well. Are you battling with that hoof? Rebecca, you're wondering where Shongile is? Rebecca, I honestly don't know. I haven't heard any updates yet. I did ask one or two of the guys. They said no, they haven't seen anything. There apparently was a leopard that was called a Shongile crossing into Djuma from Little Gowrie, I think at the beginning of the week or during the last weekend. But I haven't heard anything else. I haven't heard of any other confirmed sightings of her. But we know that she's a leopard that does fly under the radar, and sometimes even on Djuma, she spends a week, 2 weeks here, and we don't even have a clue that she's here. So she likes to walk around in blocks. It's not often that she's right out in the open. So hopefully we will find some sign of her soon, and we'll be able to spend some time with her. It's such a beautiful cat as well, and I'm sure what she's doing is just keeping a low profile, staying out of the way. After that altercation with Tundi, there's a number of different other predators around, and other females in the form of shadow, and she's probably just trying to make herself sort of quite small and just not bring too much attention to herself at this stage. You can hear a woodpecker in the distance as well, drumming away at one of these dead trees. I just can't see where it is. It sounds like a bearded woodpecker, just given the size of it. Oh, there it is. You see it, Seb? On this dead tree on the left-hand branch. You can just see its head. So this is the tree? No, the second one at the back.
Oh, yeah,
left. Yeah. So it looks like a bearded woodpecker from here. There it. Oh no! Don't fly away. So it just flew away now to a tree right in the background there. But it definitely looks like a bearded from where I was sitting. I'm quite surprised though that there's no hyenas around at the moment. Michael, you want to know which of his older brothers does Hosana most remind me of? I'm just trying to think. I would say probably Mishu. would be probably the one that he most reminds me of. Induna had a slightly different look about him too, and so did Shivambalana. So I'd say Mishu would be the one for me that most resembles Hosana at this stage. Unfortunately, with Induna and Mishu, funny enough, I didn't get to spend all that much time with them. They tended to hang around Djuma a lot more. They didn't come down to Little Gowrie, because at that stage there was still Mafufanyan was down in the south there, and there was Intima and Safari, and so they sort of stayed much more on this side of the world. So I didn't get too much time with them. I mean, we had a few sightings of them, and I saw them every now and then, but not sort of extended periods of time with either of those two. Shivambalana we saw a lot more, and he eventually, at one stage just before I left Chitwa, was around Chitwa almost daily at that point. So I spent quite a bit of time with him, but Induna and Mishu not as much as I would have liked, and in fact Mishu even less than Induna. But Sabi, you spent a lot of time with him, didn't you?
Yes.
Do you think Hosana reminds you of either one of those two?
Right, yeah, a little bit.
There we go.
Yeah,
So Seb is agreeing with me. He says a little bit like Mishu.
Yeah.
I wonder where those two are. I know that they've been seen every now and then in the Kruger system, both Induna and Mishu, but I don't know when the last report was for either of them. It would be nice to know that they're doing well. I'm sure if they were seen fairly recently, and they must be big dominant males by now, that they're doing just fine. The thing is, where they shifted is they all went into, by the sounds of it, into the sort of Kruger and into the southeastern corner of Manyaleti, which is a place that very little traffic goes to, and there's also really big areas there of wilderness where there's no roads, and so the chances of actually seeing either of those in those kind of places is quite difficult. So that's why we can't really monitor how they've grown up. It's just fleeting glimpses every now and then of the two of them. Hopefully Hosana will not be the same. Hopefully Hosana, wherever he ends up, if it's not here in this area, he ends up somewhere where there's lodges, and that we can follow how he goes and how he progresses into adulthood, and whether or not he will become a successful male that's territorial and raises and protects lots of cubs, should we say, not raises, because they don't really play any part in raising of the cubs. They just will protect an area to make sure that females can raise their cubs. I don't quite know what he's doing with this leg. He's not really crunching it down. Seems to just be licking it. Anya, who's 12 years old. Hello, Anya. And you want to know how old this carcass is. And well, Anya, this is the leg for the impala, which was killed on Tuesday night. So, because they found it Wednesday morning. So it's now 3 full days old. And that's really the last of it. The only reason that he's still here and still eating the impala carcass, which is slightly older, is because Tandi killed a steenbok here, and he seems to have stolen that away from Tandi and has fed on it himself, which means that he had another carcass to keep him busy, and that's why the impala carcass has lasted a little bit longer. If it was just the impala carcass, in all likelihood he would have finished it not last night, the night before, and would have been done with it by yesterday. And I don't think he still would have been here, but he still had his steenbok to finish yesterday, and then the scraps of this impala that he's now finishing off at the moment. It's interesting though, I've watched a number of different leopards feed off impalas in my time, and the adults generally crunch these leg bones down quite quickly. It doesn't take long for them, particularly the males. Somebody like Tingana would have hoofed that down in about 2 seconds flat. But Hosana seems to kind of been not really sure as to how to get to all the meat. He hasn't really bitten through everything. He's kind of licking it, although it seems as though he's got it now. He's busy crunching down now, so maybe he's worked it out. And there'll be nice marrow inside that leg, which is probably quite tasty, although I can imagine a 3-day-old impala leg can't be that pleasant to actually feed off. Sky, you want to know if Hosana has a typical male leopard personality, or is he a more approachable leopard? Well, Sky, there's no typical male leopard personality. They're all different. They've all got their own ways about them. We know that Tingana is a male that just likes to move and patrol, and all he sort of does is move around, whereas Anderson is a little bit more shy. Mafufanyana, when he was here, was as bold as anything. You would find him lying out in the open. You would spend lots of time, if you found Mafufanyana, you used to have a guaranteed long sighting with him. It was very seldom he used to try and lose you. So it just depends on the males. Some of them are different. There's no typical sort of male persona that they take on. He does have that sort of male clumsiness in a way, which is quite funny, because the males tend to do all kinds of things that make me laugh. The females tend to be a little bit more particular about what they do, whereas the males tend to mess around and be a little bit more goofy and seem to always get themselves into problems. It's like last night with Tingana, when we were trying to follow him. At one point he went up into a tree, and he was on the tiniest branch that you could imagine. In fact, he almost fell out about 3 times, and they seem to do those kind of things a lot, the males more than what the females do. The females tend to be a little bit more calculated in how they go about their day. I was just listening now. I can hear some squirrels and some birds that are alarm calling towards Treehouse. I wonder if Thandi and Shadow are not still around this particular area. Maybe not both of them, but I wonder if one of them isn't still lurking around Treehouse Dam. I don't think anyone saw Thandi yesterday. In the morning when we came here, we didn't really look for her, but I wonder if maybe one of them is still in this area. Oh, Hosana, are you enjoying that leg? Nothing like an impala leg to start one's cattle day. Now we're going to sit with Hosana and enjoy the beautiful morning light on him, and while we do that, let's go back to James with his spotted beauties in the Mara. In the most horrific spot possible. This is the best view we can get of him. He dropped his leg off his branch and has then come down and now has got the pelvis of this impala, and you can see he's inside there. It's almost impossible to see him. It's not a very friendly spot, so we've come around the other side to try and see if we can see him, because we couldn't see him from where we were on that side of the drainage, and so we've come on this side, and it's really not very much better. There we go. That's nice of you. Are you going to come out for us? See, he's just sniffing around. It's obviously where there was bits of meat, and he's looking for any signs. But I think it's all finished, boy. Nope. Maybe he's sniffed something else out. Wondering what he's going to do from here, because I'd be very surprised if he spent too much time here. Once he decides that it's finished, generally they move off. They generally go somewhere, drink some water, and then lie up for the day before moving on in the afternoon or evening. So I'm interested to see what he does. It's always difficult with these younger cats because they don't really have a pattern that they follow. They just go wherever they need to go to find what they need. And so I wonder if he's not going to just... Are you going to go that side? Of course you are. Soraya, are you saying if hypothetically Karula was still around, would she still be feeding Hosana at his age? It is possible. They sometimes will feed their cubs up to 2 years old. So, and I've seen a female before feeding a 3.5-year-old male. So it is possible. It depends though. Sometimes no, and they'll get rid of them a little bit earlier, but I would imagine we would have been at the stage now where Karula would have been starting to push them out. Where are you going? Another story, this cat. I wonder where he's going to go from there. Let's try and see if we can go back round again, Seb, because where he is now is no point in being on this bank, as we are not going to get very much from here. So we'll go past Treehouse Dam again. Oh, he's gone up into the tree, which is perfect if we go around. Not so good from this side, Seb, but... Oh, come on, Rusty. We are, Taylor. We've been spoilt by our leopards the last few days, and we've got the playful Hosana, who's biting and chewing everything that he can. Isn't this amazing? What are you doing? You can't eat the tree. but he's been dragging sticks around and biting them and having a really good time of it. You're being a little bit playful this morning, Hosana. The little cub in him is coming out. Well, I suppose he's not a cub anymore, he's sub-adult, but the cub side of life is coming out now because it's a bad stick and it needs to be broken. What are you doing? You can't help but think that that is cute. If that is not cute, I don't know. What are you up to? There we go, stick in the mouth. It is my stick, and I shall hug it and squeeze it forever. Oh no, now we've got more sticks and... What are you doing, silly boy? So, if we thought he was getting big and he was growing up, that just shows us that he's still youthful at heart. He's having a wonderful time with his twigs and sticks and branches. Have you decided that you look silly now? Now you're going to pose? Nope. I want that one. How cool is this? You are a funny cat, you know that. But I think he's done with... Catherine, you say he's got that cub energy. He does. He's a little bit on the naughty side. But I think he's done with his carcass now. You can see he's starting to actually stride off quite quickly. So I think we're going to be taken through the bushes now and probably towards Twin Dams. That's where I would imagine he's going to go. You can see he's looking around a little bit, but he's definitely done. He's no more food left. There was one or two bones, but he chewed those for about 2 minutes, and now he seems as though he's got a little bee in his bonnet because he's been up a tree, down a tree, playing with branches. He seems as though he really wants to get somewhere and has got quite a bit of energy. I suppose he's been sitting here for 3 days, so he's got lots of energy to burn now, and that's why he'll want to walk around and go and see what else has been happening and try and find other things. So we're going to try and stay with him. Of course, Rusty has now been fixed. Rusty is no longer making that horrific noise because we've removed, well, a massive tree from Rusty. There was a branch that got hooked around the axle. So once that was out, everything was back to normal, and Rusty now sounds a lot better. We managed to also fix the fan problem that we had yesterday. Last night, Seb and I just found that the... What would you call it? The bar, Seb? Yeah, I don't even know what that thing is called, but anything, what holds the bonnet up when you're working underneath the hood was not where it was supposed to be, and it was actually hitting the fan belt. I mean the fan itself, sorry, and that's what was making that clunking noise yesterday. So Rusty is all back to normal. Oh, there's a nyala. Hosana, look to your right. So there's your nyala over there, which has seen Hosana because he's in no way not hidden. Are you going to bark, Nyala? It's interesting because the Nyala is not barking at all. And it's almost like it doesn't want to bring attention to itself. There it goes, it's got a little baby, and there goes Hosana. You see, oh, you've noticed too late, Hosana. But there was a tiny baby Nyala in there. And as soon as he saw the baby Nyala running, that was when he got interested. You can see, look how he's perked up. Now you can hear the Nyala calling now. Let's just try and keep up with Hosana because I know this cat will disappear quickly if we don't stay with him. Particularly if he sees something like a baby Nyala that might prompt him to start sort of chasing quite quickly. And in this kind of terrain with lots of fallen over trees, it's not very easy to negotiate. So we're going to try and see if we can't follow Hosana through here. He seems to have seen something else that's piqued his interest. He's been looking in the same direction. He's kind of forgotten about the Nyala. So I don't know if he's maybe spotted another prey animal somewhere. But while we see what he's been doing, let's go back to James and his cheetah and see what they're up to and whether they've started to hunt like our Hosana. Well, he was, but he's now decided to settle down on top of this termite mound, so we might have to reposition ourselves. But he's still watching those nyala, keeping them in sort of eye shot, and maybe he's just waiting for them to relax again and to start feeding before he makes his next approach. But he was very interested for a while, and he kind of ran along and tried to get a better sort of point of view, and then he's now gotten up onto this mound with a little bit of cover, and it's the perfect place for him to be able to watch what's going on. So I think for us, Seb, maybe let's just try and get around this tree, and that we can at least see his face then, because I think there should be a gap through the other side here. I can't see the nyala myself. They ran quite far, so just goes to show how good these guys' eyesight is, because he can still see them wherever they may be. I have no idea where they've gone. I can't see any sign of them at all. But Seb, maybe from here somewhere. Oh, come on, Rusty. Rusty is battling through all of this monkey orange. But how's that, Seb? Through there? Can you see his face, at least? That might be the perfect gap for you. I don't know. Just let me know if it isn't. No. It's got one branch in your way. Yeah. It's back or forward?
It won't change.
Won't change.
It was better where you were.
Okay, just hold on. Let me just go back slightly. So we're just going to try and see if we can get that branch out the way. You know what, Seb, let's try forward. Come on, Rusty. There we go. There we go. That's better. So poor Rusty's had a rough few drives. Yeah, but he'll be alright. Or she. That's better. Now we don't have a branch slap bang in the middle of Hosana's face. It looks a lot better from there. But you can see he's still looking intently down towards those nyalas. Now, Roshni, are you saying, Hosana, are you not a fool yet, sweetheart? Well, I don't think he is. He's opportunistic, so anything he can get. We know that he's already taken a kill from Tundi, so now, if he can get himself a baby nyala, he will take that opportunity for sure. So that's why he's watching so carefully. But I'm in a way a bit sad that the nyala arrived, because he was in such a playful mood. I thought we were going to see him running around up and down trees and just being a little bit kind of on the playful side. But that has been cut short by the seriousness of hunting. He's now sort of watching nyala and is a lot more alert about those things. And that playful side of him seems to have sort of been put on hold for a little bit now. But he really is losing that cub look now. He's starting to look a lot more like a leopard. He's bulky, male leopard should I say. He's been getting really bulky around the chest and the neck area, and his eyes are a lot more serious than what they were when he was younger. You can see how he just uses every sense. So his ears are turning all the time, eyes looking, and as soon as he sees or picks up any sign of movement, then he's focusing and looking and staring and making sure he's analyzing what's going on. So he already seems to have a very good grasp of what's going on and how to get into good positions, and the fact that he's killing goes to show that he has got the idea right. Just listening though. The squirrels that were alarm calling earlier have stopped, but there was a francolin that was making a bit of noise. But I'm trying to see if it's a francolin that could have seen Hosana, or if maybe there was somebody else around. No, I don't think so. What are you looking at now? Always seems to have these eyes that are very inquisitive as to what's going on all around him. He seems to look at everything that moves, a bit like Tumba as well. Tumba's got the attention span of an insect. Anything that moves he wants to watch and look and investigate, and Hosana has a little bit of that as well. If there's a slight sort of movement or a bird that flies past or an ant that walks past, he's investigating and eyes are on it and nose is down smelling. Aegis, you say Hosana has something in mind with that expression. He does. You can see he's looking all over the place. What have you seen, Hosana? I can't see anything in the areas that he's looking, so I don't know, unless it's birds that are flying past, because there's been quite a number of birds that have just come past us and have been flying, and he seems to be watching those more than anything else. What is going through your mind, young one? Isn't that beautiful, though? It's about as good as it gets when looking at a leopard. Izzy, you say he's starting to look quite fierce. Well, those eyes are getting quite piercing, aren't they? And as he bulks up and gets bigger and stronger, so that more serious male leopard look starts to happen, and they do start to look a lot more sort of fierce and grumpy with life. So he is starting to take on that sort of look. Still got a bit of cub in him, and still, you know, he's a small cat in comparison to Tingana. It was amazing yesterday when we were following Tingana around. Seb and I were talking about it on the way home last night, is that you realize just how much Hosana still's got to go before he's going to be able to compete with the big boys. He's nowhere near the same size as what Tingana is. And how cool is that, seeing the little fly? So there's one of those biting flies that was hovering around his face. Oh, it's disappeared now. There it is. You can just see it every now and then coming past his nose there. But he's got a long way to go before he's going to be competing with the likes of Tingana. Tingana is still a massive individual in comparison to Hosana. Isn't that beautiful? Couldn't ask for better when you can have a situation where you can have just his eyes and nose in a shot, and watching him stare is wonderful, especially late in the morning like now. We would expect most of our cats to be starting to sleep now, but Hosana is giving us an absolute treat, and I'm very glad we came this way, because we were going to try and see if we could find that male lion, but it sounds like they've all crossed into Torchwood and then northwards towards Buffels Hook. So I'm glad that we came to Hosana instead, and have had such a magical time with him already this morning. He's been a real treat. What have you seen, boy? Anne-Marie, you say leopards seem to be more curious than other big cats. Well, I agree with that. I think leopards are far more curious, and maybe it's just their way that they are, and they're always looking at things and investigating and going towards sounds and checking out what's going on. I find lion cubs can be quite curious too, but the problem with them is that they often then get disciplined by mom, and they learn the lazy traits that the females and males have, and they end up sleeping a lot of the time. But leopards, being on their own, they tend to go and investigate and go and explore and see what goes on, and they're often up to no good. As I was saying with Tumba, he's always all over the place and sniffing around and checking what's going on. And Hosana and Shongile, when they were still cubs and together, they were also very playful, up and down trees and getting themselves into all kinds of issues. So leopards seem to have a lot more of an inquisitive nature, and it really is a pleasure to spend time with them when they're like that, because it's always fun to watch them as they go about their business and try and sort of figure out their environment and have fun with it as well. That's probably the best thing. It always looks as though they're having lots of fun. Oh, are you sleepy? Where are you putting your head? He's almost being like an ostrich, put the head in the sand, so to speak. Of course, ostriches don't put their head in sand, but there's that common misdemeanor. But I don't know what he's doing. Anyway, we'll stay with Hosana for a while and see why he's got his head down the hole of a termite mound, because who knows what he's up to at the moment. That can't be comfortable to sleep like that. Maybe he's decided that that's how he feels like sleeping today. He really is quite a character. But while we do that, let's go back to Taylor in the Mara. I think she's still busy sitting with... Well, the little chief is now on his patrol and is trying to find something to eat, and there is... ears are perked up, tail is wagging, so I don't know what he's seen, but he's seen something. I love a leopard's tail. It's the best thing about them when they are hunting, because it just gives away exactly what they're thinking. You can see there's excitement in that tail. The tail wants to go forward and wants to go and find whatever it is that he's seen. But for now, it's time to settle. Fair enough. He's been eating already, but it was something that he spotted from the termite mound that we were on just now, because he came down and walked straight in this direction and was posturing as though he was stalking. So I don't know what exactly it is that he's managed to find or see, But now he's found himself a little termite mound to sit on, and it's nice for us because it's not every day that you're eye level with a leopard and you can see him so clearly like that. It's a beautiful actual place for him to sit because we can see him perfectly through that gap, which is quite nice. Izzy, you want to know if a leopard reaches a period where their bone structure stops growing like humans? Well, yes. So you'll find that older male leopards, they don't continue to grow. Once they reach about 7, they're pretty much fully grown individuals. So between 6 and 7, their bone structure is pretty set. They're not going to grow too much more than that. You'll find that when they're young like this, they do grow quite a bit, and then the rate of growth just slows massively. Even with Hosana, if you look, he went through that massive growth spurt where he completely dwarfed Shongile, and then since then, he's slowed down a little bit. He's not really kind of grown at a rapid rate, and as he then approaches sort of 5-6 years old, so that's going to stop completely, and he'll be that size then for pretty much the rest of his life. The only thing that does grow throughout is that dewlap, so the dewlap will just get bigger and bigger as he gets older and older, but his actual bone structure is not going to get too much bigger after around 6-7 years old. But he doesn't look too settled to me. It looks as though he might get up and go again soon. He's looking around all over the place. There's a wind that's also picked up here, much like in the Mara. You can see the leaves are blowing there. So I wonder if there's not just a lot of scent that is blowing around, and he's picking up all kinds of different things. There's also rustling from the noise of the wind, and he seems to grab his attention all the time. So I don't think he's too settled just yet. Problem is, where he's heading is going to be very difficult to find him later in the day. Chitty Chatty Meg, you're wondering how much a leopard weighs and what I think the weight is of Hosana. Well, big adult male leopards in this ecosystem can weigh close to 200 pounds, so 90 kilograms, 95 kilograms for a really massive individual. Most of them will weigh about 80 though. So 180 to 200 pounds for the big males. Females will be about 100 to 120 pounds at the most in this area. And Hosana, I would imagine, is somewhere in between at the moment. He's probably, I would say, about 120 pounds, maybe 130 pounds, somewhere around there. I don't think he's too big just yet, and he's got quite a weight to go till he puts on a bit more muscle and a bit more size before he gets into the big boy category. So he's a little bit of time, but yeah, I'd say about 130 pounds, maybe a little bit more. If he's had a meal like he has now, he might find there's a little bit more weight on him after consuming a bit more, but other than that, I would say roughly in that area. Even though he is growing and getting bigger, he's still, like I was saying earlier, a lot smaller than Tingana. Tingana's got a lot more weight on him, so definitely reckon there's a long way to go for Hosana before he's competing with those guys. Wonder what he's watching inside there. There's something that's piquing his interest in this thicket. It's very dense behind there, so I'm glad he stopped where he did, because I was a bit worried if he went down where he was heading, we're not going to be able to follow him really too much further than that. So I'm glad he stopped on the mound and is now just posing ever so regally for us. He looks very leopard-like, doesn't he, on that mound? What is the tail notice now? Can be wondering when Hosana is going to find his own territory. Well, there's a number of factors that will determine whether or not he finds his own one, and probably the biggest thing with that is other male leopards. So like Tingana, when are they going to push him away? Is he going to end up being gifted by having one of those older males disappear and he can then kind of stay in an area? But theoretically, male leopards generally start forging territories and making their territories from about 4 years old, if they're lucky, but most of them really only become territorially dominant at around 5.5 to 6 years. So he's still got a long way to go. I mean, you must remember that Hosana is not even 2 years old yet. He's still a young boy, and he's got a long way to go before he's going to be a territorially dominant individual. We might still see him around here for a while, but he's definitely not in any way going to be competing for dominance for the next, I would say, year and a half at least. He's going to still have to grow quite a bit more before he's going to even try and start looking for places to start setting up a territory. But there he goes, into the wooded thicket. Now, whether or not we can follow him through here is anyone's guess at this stage. It really is an unpleasant place he's heading, but we're going to try our very best to get there. Poor Rusty. Oh, I feel so bad. Between following Tingana yesterday afternoon and then Hosana this morning, Rusty's had a really tough time of it. But made of stronger stuff, so it will be okay. We'll certainly manage. It's like lifting a curtain to see Hosana. You just push the quarry down and there magically behind the quarry is a leopard. What are you watching? I wonder if those Nyala didn't come this way, Seb, and down into this drainage, that he's still watching them. If it is those Nyala, he's looking for that baby one. That's the one that he's after, because there was a tiny baby that ran in between all the adults, and maybe that's what he can still see. There's definitely something that's got his attention. Just listening. Look how he's keeping his body quite low. Tail's also not being held too high. So that's generally a cat that's busy looking at things. There's also a termite mound up ahead here. I wonder if there's maybe not some dwarf mongoose that are moving around. That will also pique his interest. Let's keep up with him. Now, have you decided that's where you want to sit? Is you hoping that Hosana will be the king of Djuma? Well, there's a lot of things that have got to happen. You see, he is stalking. Look, his ears are going flatter. I can't see what it is. Can you see, Seb? Look how he's striding now. He's in a completely different mode. There's something up ahead that he's now spotted. We're just going to give him some space. But I was saying, for him to be the king, he's going to have to hope that Tingana goes missing and Quarantine and Anderson don't decide to come this way, because he's not going to be able to compete with those two. But look at that. There is something about when a cat starts to stalk, when they go into the stoop and they kind of flatten their ears and their shoulders go lower, and you can see that floating collarbone that allows them to get that belly down, and they can then get through this underbrush. And look at the tail. How cool is this? What have you spotted? Whatever it is, it seems as though it's quite close, because he's all of a sudden gone from kind of just sitting and walking to very interested, and it must be something that's fairly close by. I don't want to ruin anything, so I'm going to stay where I am at the moment. You see now, he's just sitting and stopping. It's very much like Tingana yesterday. Tingana was doing very similar things, where he'd stalk up and then he would sit and he would watch and he would just work out what's going on before he then started again. But that posture has changed completely. Let's see. I still can't see anything for the life of me. I'm looking everywhere. Maybe there's a little antelope somewhere in there, like a steenbok or a duiker that he might have seen. There he goes again. Like I say, I'm trying not to move because I don't want to disturb him in any way, but I also need to be able to keep visual of him, because if he does run, we need to be able to see which way he goes. So some of you think maybe scrub here? Could very well be. He's still moving. He's quite far from where I am now, so I'm going to try and just catch up with him, because I can see he's trotting now. See, he's still slinking around there. Look at him, look how low he is to the ground. He's doing that typical leopard crawl. So as long as we can get into this gap, then we're fine, because we can sit and watch him. Look at how close he is. Look at that, Seb. He's so close. There's the duiker, and Hosana is lying just beneath that duiker. He cannot be more than, I would say, 4 meters from that duiker. And the duiker has no idea he's there. There he is. You can see him just sitting. How he got from this side to there without that duiker seeing him, I have no idea. But there you can see his bum just in the left corner and the duiker just in front. That is as close as you could wish for. Now he's going to sit flat and hope that the duiker walks closer towards him. He's just got to stay patient and wait for the duiker to move a little bit closer to him. But this is amazing. I can't believe he got so close without being seen. He's crossed a massive open section without this duiker having any idea that he was there. Now he just has to, like I say, show a bit of patience. It is amazing how close he is. Just what he's got to do is hope that the duiker keeps its head down and doesn't spot him. The problem what he's got is that he keeps lifting his head because he's curious. You can see, look, his head is up, and I wonder if he's going to go. He looks like he's about to go. Look, he's readying his back legs. He's thinking about it. He's just popped his head up just to see where the duiker is going. Now he wants to make a move. Look, he's up and moving towards the duiker. You see? How cool is this? And look how carefully he's placing his feet. Careful, Hosana. Now we can't move from where we are now because we will disturb what's going on. So it's going to be a bit thick and bushy, unfortunately. But I think Hosana is getting himself into prime position. Look at how he's slinking along. Look at that. How incredible is that? See how careful he is with his paws as he goes. Now it just goes to show how opportunistic leopards can be. Look, he's got himself behind a tree so he can move a little quicker now to get round the tree. I can't see the duiker anymore. Can you, Seb? Oh, there it is. It's there behind. I can see it now. There we go. So you see, look how he's using the tree to his advantage and a thicket. And all it is one bound. That duiker is coming out right in front of him. It's, I would say, maybe 2 meters in front. You can see its head bobbing there, just in the right-hand side. There it is. It's as close as he's going to get, I think. Look at the back legs. Siberia Zumi, you say the theme song is playing in your head, but I think the duiker has spotted him. I think the duiker has seen him. You see the duiker's looking right at him. Yeah, the duiker's seen him. Now the duiker's got a choice. It either sits still and hopes that this leopard hasn't seen him, or it turns and runs. But I don't know if Hosana's... No, there goes the duiker, and unfortunately that's it. Oh, Hosana, you were close. Very close. That's the way it goes, though. If they got every single one, it would be difficult. But there he goes. He's going to carry on. What's he found there? He's sniffing around where it was. Sure, it was very close. I think he had an opportunity where he could have maybe tried to burst and run, but his mistake was that he came around the tree too early, and he then went forward and the duiker saw him. If he had just stayed sitting, I think that duiker was going to feed straight back towards where he was. Look, he's smelling there now, so he's trying to work out if there's maybe a sign of a little one, but that was a little male duiker that we saw. Oh well, Hosana, don't worry. You learn from your mistakes. But that was very close. Now, whether or not we're going to be able to follow him is anyone's guess from here, because it's starting to look horrific inside here. Right. Now, our Husana is carrying on, so we're going to try and see if we can kind of follow him through. I don't know if we're going to be able to. It really is a dense, horrible place that he's heading, and there's lots of fallen over trees. And so while we do that, let's go back to James Henry and his spotted cats in the Mara. Hosana has decided now that it's time for some shade. Enough shenanigans. He's chased, since you've last been with us, he's chased button quails, he's stalked some nyala, and now he's found himself a shady spot just to rest, which is nice for us because it was starting to get a little bit hairy inside here. There's, as you can see, not exactly a lot of space to maneuver. There's trees all over the place, so I'm glad that he's found himself a little shady spot to rest. Now, it's a bit of a reason why he's sleeping like this is because there was actually a nyala that was around that he was watching for a while, and the nyala started barking. I don't think the nyala could see him, but maybe smell him because there is a bit of a breeze blowing. And the nyala was kind of barking, so he stopped just to look and to just see it. And then as the nyala calms down, maybe he'll then carry on hunting again. I don't know. But he's been busy boy this morning, and he's posed for us ever so nicely. But it looks as though he's now starting to get a bit sleepy, which is not surprising given the time of day and what he's been up to already this morning. Craig, you're asking how many leopards are in Djuma that we follow. Craig, at the moment, there's, in terms of the regular leopards, there is seven regular leopards that we're following. So that's Tingana, the big male. Then we've got Shongile and Hosana, Shadow and her cub, and Tandi and Tumba. So that's the 7 that we see regularly on Djuma. And then there are some transient ones that come in. So we do see sometimes Chila that comes in, Mvula. Who else is in here every now and then? There was Tiani came in once or twice, and Kuchava sometimes on Chitwa. So there's around sort of 10 of them that we do see, that we have a chance of seeing in this area. There are some in Buffelshoek that don't come down this way that I would imagine at some point will. But yeah, it's quite a high density when you consider that it's 10 leopards in 1,200 hectares. It's not exactly a massive space for 10 leopards to exist. So there is quite a high density in this particular section, and hopefully it will continue that way, and we'll continue to have great sightings of leopards over the next few months as we sort of go towards summer. Summer will become a lot more difficult. Leopards are much harder to find in the summer months. They really sort of thrive in these thickets, and when it's summer, even where we are now, it would be almost impossible to get in here. It just gets that much denser. But look at those paws. Still lots of miles to be put on those at this stage. They're still fresh, so no need to worry about them, and still growing as well. But you can see nicely the 3 lobes on the back, and when we talk about those 3 lobes, you can see on the back of the pad there very clearly all 3 of them, and then those big round toes that they have, or oval shaped toes should I say, that are separated. You can see the fur in between each of those toes, which is different to the hyenas. The hyenas' toes are stuck together, and they'll only have the 2 lobes, so it's a nice sort of indication. You can also see that the back pad is a very oval shape on a male, whereas his front foot would be far more circular in what you see on that. So that's how we're able to tell front and back feet from the leopards. You can see, look how much bigger that paw is. And if he turned it slightly, you would see that it's a more rounded shape of the paw itself. But that head is falling slowly but surely. I love when cats start sleeping like this. It's the best thing, because they kind of fight it for as long as they can, but the head starts to drop slowly but surely, and eventually they just give up and they'll go completely to sleep. Male lions are always the funniest because they do it a lot. Luke, you're wondering how leopards cool off if you don't see them panting. Well, they do pant, Luke. That's how they will cool off, and they do just like dogs. And yesterday, when we saw Hosana yesterday morning, and the day before, he was panting quite heavily. It's not really that hot just yet. We've had a bit of a sort of cloud came in for a little bit, and it kept it fairly cool, and he hasn't really exerted too much energy now. You can see his breathing rate is quite quick, but he's not actually panting because it's not that hot yet. Once the sun gets up in this afternoon, you'll find he'll probably be panting, and that's how they cool down, much like lions and even cheetah when they've exerted themselves. But the best thing for him in terms of staying cool when he's not active is to find a place like he is now. He's got shade, and there's a bit of a breeze blowing. Oh, that head is almost down. Hosana, why don't you just lie? There we go. That's better. So I think that is Hosana for the day. I think he's decided this is where I shall lie and where I shall sleep. I doubt that he's going to be here this afternoon in this particular spot, but I don't think he'll be too far. Right, while we carry on, we're going to leave Hosana. Let's go back to James in the Mara and see what his plans are.